I push open the creaking door of a forgotten antique shop. The air thick with dust and the scent of old wood, and my eyes lock onto a tall, veiled mirror shoved into a corner like a secret kept too long. I pull the velvet aside, the glass shivers, and instead of my reflection, I see a childhood home. But the windows are blackened, and the hallway stretches impossibly far. A sudden shift pulls me back to the present. My own face gazes from the glass, but one eye is a void, sucking in the dim light around it. The surface ripples like water disturbed by an unseen stone, and fragmented images of moments I never lived flicker across its depths. Each fragment whispers a secret, names I've never heard, promises broken before they were made, and a cold dread settles in my chest. I feel an icy tendril crawl from the glass up my arm, as if the mirror is reaching out to claim the warmth of my blood. With each glance, the reflections become more grotesque, skin peeling like old wallpaper, faces stretched into silent screams. A dark ink begins to seep from the center of the mirror, staining the floor in slow, deliberate lines that pulse like a heartbeat. Desperate, I swing a hammer, the glass shatters, yet the shards hover midair, each reflecting a different nightmare that never ends. One fragment shows a future version of me alone in a barren apartment, walls covered in the same ink, the silence deafening. The mirror pulls my hand inward. I feel weightless, caught between my world and the endless reflected void. Beyond the glass lies an infinite hallway of doors, each ajar, each humming with a faint, desperate memory. I step through a door and am flooded with a forgotten birthday, the candles burning with a color that never existed. Facing my deepest self, I see a version whose eyes are empty hollows, reflecting the abyss that has been waiting inside me all along. I step back into my room, the mirror whole again, but the surface is now empty. Yet, I feel the weight of all those lives I glimpsed. What reflections would you let yourself see if the mirror asked for a piece of you? I arrived at the apartment, bags in hand, and the first thing that caught my eye was the ornate wallpaper lining the living room. That night, under the soft hum of the city, the motifs began to move, forming a tiny window that displayed a child playing in a sunlit garden. Compelled, I stared longer, and the wallpaper stitched a new tableau. A version of me standing on a quiet street, never having left my hometown. Each vision felt vivid, but with each glance, I sensed a small absence, like a forgotten birthday or a lost song. Morning light revealed the wallpaper still shifting, now echoing a fleeting glimpse of a lover's smile that I could not place. I attempted to cover the wall with a sheet, but the patterns seeped through like dark ink, staining the fabric. Desperate, I lit a match, hoping fire would consume the haunting designs. But the flames only birthed more vivid scenes. The fire's light revealed a new tableau. My older self, eyes hollow, seated at a desk piled with unfinished letters. I heard a faint whisper in the static of the room, a legend of walls that feed on attention. Realizing each glance stole a fragment of me, I forced myself to look away. Yet the patterns pulsed, begging for my gaze. I sat on the floor, clutching my head as the room seemed to breathe, the wallpaper's breath synchronizing with my own. Summoning courage, I spoke directly to the shifting patterns, demanding they release me from their endless replay. The wallpaper responded with a silent gaze, offering a flawless version of my life, a choice between the imagined and the real. I felt a pull, the air humming, as the pattern stretched like a hand, inviting me to through. I stand on the heart pounding, and I ask you, would you surrender your reality for a glimpse of the perfect life hidden within these walls? I climb the attic stairs, the air thick with dust and forgotten memories, and discover a rusted rotary phone perched on an old wooden crate, its black silhouette stark against the dim light. The phone rings, a sharp metallic sound that pierces the silence, and a voice my own, yet older, answers, speaking of a life I never chose, one rooted in the quiet river town of my childhood. As the voice describes the rivers and the scent of pine, I feel a warmth on my skin, and a photograph of my current apartment flickers out of existence. The call ends with a lingering echo, and the phone clicks back to silence, leaving me with the unsettling feeling that something from that other life now clings to me. Night falls, and the phone rings again. This time, a melody threads through the voice, a version of me who pursued music, his words resonating like a chord struck in a dark hall. Each note he plays drains the sound from my own throat, and I realize my voice is fading, replaced by a humming that reverberates through the walls. The call ends, leaving a lingering silence that feels heavier than before, as if the attic itself has absorbed part of my breath. Morning arrives, but the phone rings once more, a voice recounting a life where I never fell in love, describing an emptiness that mirrors the attic's bleak corridors. As the voice speaks, a photograph of my first love fades from my mind, the memory slipping away like sand through my fingers. The call ends, and the attic feels colder, as if the temperature of my own heart has dropped alongside the lost affection. Daylight wanes, and the phone a final time. A calm voice offering me a choice. Keep answering and become a tapestry of unlived lives, or cut the line and preserve my fading reality. I grasp the receiver, feeling the cold metal pulse like a living thing, each throb echoing the beating of my own heart, now faint and irregular. A whisper rises from the phone, urging me to answer, promising the endless knowledge of all paths, while a distant echo warns of surrendering myself. I pull the cord sharply, snapping it with a crack that reverberates like a final bell, and the attic erupts in a cascade of fading memories, each fragment disappearing into dust. Silence returns, the attic calm but empty, and I ask you if a voice from a life you never lived called you. Would you answer? Or would you let the line fade into the dark? I push aside the cobwebs in the attic, and among forgotten trunks, I find a leather-bound diary humming faintly, as if it has been waiting for me. That night, the diary flips its cover, and ink appears on the first page, describing a coffee spill I will cause tomorrow. Morning comes. I barely notice the spilled coffee staining my shirt, as if the diary's words have become reality. Each day passes, and I wake up to find more entries in the diary, each one bringing me closer to losing something. As the diary continues to write, I realize that its power lies not just in its predictions, but also in its ability to make them come true. I try to break free from the diary's influence, but its power is too strong. Each day feels like a battle against an unseen enemy. I reach my breaking point, and in a desperate bid for freedom, I decide to break the diary. As the diary crumbles into dust, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. For the first time in weeks, I'm free from its influence. I take a deep breath and realize that while I'm free from the diary's influence, my journey is far from over. There are still choices to make, and the future is still uncertain. As the story ends, I am left wondering, what if the diary had written differently? What if I had made different choices? I stand at the edge of a forgotten subway platform, its tiles cracked and overgrown with moss, while a flickering amber light casts elongated shadows that seem to breathe with the stale air. A cracked speaker crackled to life, announcing a train that would arrive at midnight, its destination unknown. When the doors slicked open, there was no crowd, only a hollow darkness that seemed to pulse with a faint, metallic heartbeat. I stepped inside, and the carriage was a mirror maze. Every pane reflected a version of me I never chose: childhood in a countryside house, a surgeon in a sterile operating theater, a wanderer on an endless desert road, each reflection, a fragment of my present slipped away, like sand through a clenched fist. The train pulled into another platform, a scene of a life I might have lived, and the walls whispered my name, urging me to stay. I tried to return, but the station rearranged itself, graffiti that hadn't been there, stairways that led nowhere, a sense that time itself was folding. Another train roared in, louder, its wheels grinding the rails that sang of forgotten regrets. On board, a shadowy figure that looked exactly like me stared back, eyes empty, a silent accusation that I was abandoning who I am. The realization hit. Every ride was consuming pieces of my reality, erasing memories, relationships, the very texture of my existence. I shouted, trying to stop the train, but the station's lights sputtered out, plunging everything into a soft glow of dread. The final train arrived, its doors opening to a pitch-black void. The conductor, an old man with hollow eyes, simply nodded, as if expecting me to step into oblivion. As the doors closed, I felt the last thread of my old self snap, and the platform behind me dissolved into silence. Now I wonder if a place could steal the life you know to give you endless possibilities. Would you step onto the train or stay on the platform that still remembers you? I climb the creaking stairs of the attic, the air heavy with dust, and discover a lone wooden window cracked open, its glass cloudy and humming with a faint, unsettling murmur. Through the pane, I see a rain-slicked cobblestone street, empty except for a solitary red balloon drifting lazily under an overcast sky. The first vision I see is of a serene meadow with blooming wildflowers. The second one shows a bustling city street filled with people. I am in my childhood home, playing with my family. The next scene shows me alone, feeling lost and scared. I see myself in the future, living in a luxurious mansion. The next scene shows me in a dark alley, being chased by unknown figures. I am in a serene forest, surrounded by peaceful nature. The next scene shows me caught in a stormy weather, with heavy rain and lightning. I am in my dream home, filled with love and prosperity. The next scene shows me alone, feeling empty and abandoned. I am surrounded by bright stars and galaxies. The next scene shows me in the depths of a dark void, alone and afraid. I am in a peaceful harbor, surrounded by boats. The next scene shows me on a dangerous island filled with treacherous terrain. I am in a futuristic city filled with advanced technology. The next scene shows me in the depths of a dystopian society with oppression. I am in a serene beach surrounded by the sound of waves. The next scene shows me on a storm-touched ship, struggling to stay afloat. I am in a peaceful meadow filled with wildflowers. The next scene shows me in the depths of a dark forest, surrounded by danger. I am in a serene sky filled with bright stars. The next scene shows me on a dangerous mountain, struggling to reach the summit. I am in a peaceful garden surrounded by blooming flowers. The next scene shows me on a stormy battlefield, fighting for survival. I am in a serene forest filled with wildlife. The next scene shows me on a treacherous mountain, falling off a cliff. I am in a peaceful harbor surrounded by boats. The next scene shows me on a storm-touched ship, struggling to stay afloat. I am in a peaceful meadow surrounded by wildflowers. The next scene shows me on a stormy battlefield, fighting for survival. I am in a serene sky filled with bright stars. The next scene shows me on a treacherous mountain, falling off a cliff. I am in a peaceful garden surrounded by blooming flowers. The next scene shows me on a storm-touched ship, struggling to stay afloat. I am in a serene forest filled with wildlife. The next scene shows me on a treacherous mountain, falling off a cliff. I pushed open the attic door, the stale air thick with dust. And there it stood, a tarnished mirror leaning against a sagging beam. Its surface clouded like a memory waiting to be recalled. When I stared, the mirror reflected a sunlit street I never walked. A younger me holding a wooden kite, laughter echoing from a sister I never had. A soft, reverse whisper rose from the frame, urging me to keep looking, promising answers, while the attic seemed to close in tighter. The next vision was a rooftop garden at night, where a woman with eyes like storm clouds leaned into me, her lips parting to say a confession I never made. Suddenly, the reflection rippled into a ruined city, skyscrapers collapsing into dust, and I felt the weight of that destruction settle into my shoulders. Each glimpse seemed to pull a thread from my mind. Names slipped away. The taste of coffee dulled, as if the mirror was stealing my present to feed its visions. Desperate, I grabbed a hammer and forced myself to look away, willing the mirror to stop its hungry gaze. When I opened my eyes, the glass was cracked beyond repair, a single fissure pulsing with a faint, black light that swallowed the attic's breath. Silence settled, but the world felt thinner. Some memories were gone, replaced by a hollow echo that lingered wherever I looked. Do you think you could resist a mirror that shows every path you might take, even if it erases the one you walk now? I walk home through a misty dusk, the wind whispering against the narrow alleys, when a faint, metallic ticking catches my ear, pulling me toward the town's forgotten square. The tower's massive iron doors stand ajar, exhaling a cold breath that carries the scent of old pine and rust, urging me to step inside. Within, the central pendulum hangs motionless, yet the air vibrates with an unseen pulse that mirrors my own heartbeat. I notice an ancient ledger on a pedestal, its pages blank, yet humming, waiting for my regrets to inscribe themselves. I open the ledger and begin to confess my sins. As I write, the clock ticks louder, each chime echoing through the tower. I confess my deepest regrets, hoping for redemption. The tower trembles with each confession. I feel a sense of peace as my sins are acknowledged. The clock tower fades away as the last confession is made. I am left alone in a dark void. I step into the dusty attic, the beam of late afternoon light cutting through the gloom, and discover a weathered music box perched on an old workbench, its brass key glinting with a promise of secrets. The first melody is delicate, like a child's lullaby. It plays in the attic, stirring memories of summer days long gone. As the music plays, my mind begins to wander. It takes me back to times that have slipped away. The music reveals new possibilities. It takes me to places I never imagined myself in. Each note of the music erases a piece of my present. It leaves me feeling lost and alone. I try to stop the music, but it seems to have a mind of its own. As the music accelerates, it becomes more frantic and discordant. I see a new door open in the chaos. It reveals a dark void where a single candle burns. The candle's flame sputters as the music finally ceases. Silence falls over the attic. I walk away from the attic, but a lingering echo of the final note follows me. I am left to question whether the music box revealed too much, or if the silence is better. I step into the dim kitchen, the evening light casting long shadows across the aged wooden floor, and my eyes are drawn to a solitary porcelain plate sitting untouched on the table. A trembling hand reaches for the plate as ethereal outlines of a feast begin to materialize, shimmering like ghosts waiting to be devoured. I take the first bite. The taste floods my mind with the scent of my grandmother's garden, and a framed photograph on the wall blurs into oblivion. Each subsequent mouthful feels like a memory slipping away, visualized by the candle on the mantel, flickering out with every swallow, its light snuffing the past. I try to push the plate away, but it glides back onto the table as if held by invisible hands, demanding another bite. The taste of each dish turns sour, like regret. And with each swallow, the air grows denser, the haze thickening around me. My heart beats louder, echoing like a drum, each thud synchronized with the clatter of cutlery against porcelain. I glance at the clock on the wall. Its hands spin wildly, each rotation erasing another fragment of time from my mind. The room feels endless now, the kitchen stretching into darkness, as if the banquet has opened a portal to a void. When the last bite finally passes my lips, the plate shatters into shards that drift like ash, and the silence that follows feels crushing. I stand alone in the empty kitchen, my mind a hollow echo. Would you dare to taste a banquet that erases who you are?